Hey guys, welcome to This Week in AI and Family Life. Today we're talking about why smart parents are the last to teach AI literacy and what it's costing you. So let me ask you a question. If your child came home tomorrow and said, Mom, I have no idea how to read, you'd act fast, right? You wouldn't wait until they were in fifth grade. You wouldn't say, let's just see how it plays out. You'd be on the phone with that teacher before dinner. So, why then, when it comes to AI literacy, are so many smart, engaging, loving parents waiting? What are we waiting for? Well, that's what we're going to talk about today. Not the tools, not the apps, not whether ChatGPT is going to take your kid's job someday. We're going to talk about you, specifically the belief system running quietly in the background of your parenting decisions, the one that keeps putting AI literacy at the bottom of that list below soccer practice, below screen time limits, and honestly, below deciding what's for dinner on Tuesday. So if you don't know me, I'm Debra Kane. I'm a certified CBT coach and a neuroscience enthusiast, and I work with parents who are smart, intentional, and genuinely love their kids. You'll hear me referred to sometimes as the AI mom mentor, and yes, that title makes me cringe just a little, but it kind of fits, even if it makes me sound like I should be having a cape with a USB port or something. I don't. But what I actually do is help parents stop reacting to technology and start leading with it. And today I'm going to show you exactly why your current beliefs about AI literacy are working against you and what that's actually costing your family. Here's what I want you to see before anything else. If you've been putting AI literacy on the back burner, you're not a bad parent. You're a normal parent because the barriers that stop well meaning, capable parents from prioritizing AI education aren't laziness, they're beliefs. And the beliefs, as any cognitive behavioral therapist will tell you, are not facts, even when they feel like facts. So let's name them because the first step in CBT, the first step in any real change actually, is awareness. Here are the top beliefs I hear from parents in my community on a weekly basis. First, my kid is too young. I don't know enough about AI to teach it. It feels overwhelming. Where would I even start? It's not urgent yet. I'll get around to doing that. Or I don't want to give my kid more screen time. Sound familiar? Any of this, even just one of them? Well, good, because if it does, you're in the right place for sure. Because here's what cognitive behavioral science tells us about these kinds of thoughts. They feel protective. They feel responsible even. But most of the time, avoidance-based beliefs aren't protecting us from a threat. They're protecting us from discomfort. And discomfort, unfortunately, is not a good enough reason to opt out of something that your child genuinely needs. Let me show you what the science actually says about where we are right now. We are not approaching an AI revolution. We are in one as I'm speaking right now, today. In 2023, ChatGPT became the fastest growing consumer application in human history, reaching 100 million users in 2 months. To put that in perspective, it took Instagram 2.5 years to hit that number. And that's not a trend. That's a tidal wave that has already made landfall. Here's what matters for parents. According to a 2023 report from the World Economic Forum, 65% of children entering primary school today will work in jobs that don't yet exist. And that's from 3 years ago, mind you. Many of those jobs will require not just familiarity with AI, but the ability to think critically alongside AI, to evaluate it, to direct it, to know when to trust it and when to push back. That's not a tech skill, guys. That's a thinking skill. And thinking skills are developed, guess where? In childhood. Here's another number that should get your attention. A 2024 survey by Common Sense Media found that over half of teens aged 13 to 18 were already using generative AI tools regularly, not just occasionally, using it for homework, for creative projects, for answers to questions they used to just Google. And the vast majority of their parents had no idea at all. So let me be clear about what this means. The conversation isn't coming. The conversation is already happening with or without you in the room. I know you want to be in the room. Now, here's something that might surprise you, and this is where the neuroscience gets really interesting. I promise I won't geek out too much. AI literacy isn't just about knowing how to use a tool or how to use it safely. Research in child cognitive development specifically work around metacognition, which is essentially thinking about your own thinking. It shows that children who learn to evaluate information, to verify sources, to question the outputs, and direct their own learning processes build stronger executive function overall. So, in plain English, teaching your kid to think critically about AI makes them better at thinking, period. Dr. Yang Zhao, education researcher at the University of Oregon, has written extensively about the need to develop what he calls cognitive agency in children, the ability to be the author of your own thinking, not just a consumer of information handed to you. That phrase, cognitive agency, is one I come back to again and again because that is exactly what AI literacy builds and exactly what we lose when we wait. By the way, I just did a video about cognitive agency last week, I believe. Go look it up. It's a great one. It's really in depth. So I want to talk to you about the cost, not the tuition, not software, not subscriptions. I'm talking about the invisible cost, the one you don't see on a bill, but feel in the quiet moments when you wonder if you're doing enough. I don't want any of you to wake up one day and say, I wish I did more. Okay? The cost of time. The average parent spends 4 to 6 hours a week managing screen time conflicts, arguments about devices, negotiations about minutes, the exhausting back and forth of enforcement without education. That time doesn't disappear when you ignore AI literacy. It multiplies because a child who doesn't understand technology isn't less likely to use it. They're just less equipped when they actually do. And again, when you are talking about time loss, it's always a regret, right? And I don't want any of you to wake up one day and say, I wish I did this, I wish I did that, I wish I tweaked something, because I've done that. And you don't have to. I didn't know better because when my kids were little, we didn't have information in the palm of our hands all the time. We do today. We have it available. The importance is more than you think. The priority should be your top three. How about the cost of energy? Fear is exhausting. And I say that as a CBT coach who deeply respects the function of fear. I mean, it's meant to be useful. But chronic low grade anxiety about screens, about AI, about what is my kid being exposed to, that kind of ambient dread depletes your energy without actually moving anything forward. It's the mental equivalent of running with the parking brake on. And neuroscience backs this up. The amygdala, your brain's threat detection center, keeps cortisol elevated when a perceived threat is present, but no action is actually taken, meaning the avoidance of the thing that you're anxious about isn't calming your nervous system. It's not helpful to avoid it. It's keeping you in a low hum of stress all the time. This is not good, not only for your mental state, but even for your physical state. It's not good. How about the cost of confidence? I hear this one most often, and it breaks my heart a little every time. Parents telling me they feel stupid talking to their kids about AI because they don't understand it themselves. Kids who have internalized the message, not spoken, but just felt that technology is something adults are afraid of, and that uncertainty is a reason to avoid. What we model, our children absorb. That's not a parenting cliche. That's mirror neuron science. Children's brains are literally wired to learn by observing the adults they trust. So when they see you approach AI with curiosity instead of fear, they learn unknown things are figure outable. When they see you avoid it, they learn this is something to be worried about. How about the cost of clarity? Here's what I find most painful about this belief gap. The parents who are most anxious about AI are often the same parents who most want to be intentional. They care deeply, they're paying attention, and that caring in the absence of clear information turns into overwhelm, into paralysis, into I'll get to it someday. It's putting it on the back burner. That's not helpful. Someday, guys, is not a strategy. And then there's the cost you don't think about until later. Picture your kid at 16 years old. They're applying for an internship or a competitive program, anything really that puts them in a room with other capable young people. The kids across the table from them have been using AI tools thoughtfully since they were like 9. They know how to prompt. They know how to verify. They know how to leverage artificial intelligence without being leveraged by it. And your child, raised by a parent who cared, who tried, who just kept waiting, though, for the right time, they're starting from zero. And let me tell you, parents and everyone in general, your friends tend to be like you, right? So if your group is all like you, and you don't think that there's others out there who are doing this, let me assure you that there are many parents who are taking this seriously, who are teaching this to their kids without them being on screens more at all. You don't need to have your kids on screen more in order to teach them about how to use it and how to use it correctly. In fact, the way you do that is by doing it with them. And we'll get into that later. But please know that you are not the only one in this situation, but there are a lot of people who also are in the other group who are ahead of the game right now. Okay. Now, this image is not meant to scare you. And I really mean that. I'm not about parent bashing or shame I'm not about that at all. If you know me, you know that. But the research on this is very clear. And I do want you to feel the weight of what it means to act now versus act later, because you have time right now. I know that's one thing that every parent will automatically say, I just don't have the time to add more into my schedule. You have the time right now. I promise you today, the window is open and you have the time. I can show you where that time is. It's not a secret because the way I teach this, you are not having to add anything to your to-do list. You are not having to add any extra time or effort. I mean, it is a little bit of effort. The effort, though, is just learning how to incorporate what I teach into your lifestyle. That's what I do. I teach people how to incorporate it into their lifestyle so that it fits and it will become a habit. Nobody's going to stick with anything or even try things that require them to have more on their to-do list or more tabs open or more time in the day that they don't have. Nobody will do that. So I show you how to do it with what you are already doing today. So here's the part where the neuroscience gets even more useful. Our beliefs aren't random. They're formed by a pattern, by experience, by culture, by the stories we've told ourselves on repeat for so long they feel like facts. They're usually not, at least not all of them. In CBT, we call these cognitive schemas, mental frameworks that act as filters. They determine what we notice, what we dismiss, and ultimately what we do. So when a parent says, I'm not a tech person, that's not a fact. That's a schema. And schemas are not fixed. They're changeable. But they don't change through information alone. They change through experience plus reflection. And that's actually great news because it means you don't have to become an AI expert before you can guide your child. You just have to be willing to learn alongside them. And here's what the research on parental modeling tells us. And this, by the way, is a Kismet fact moment. So pay attention. A study published in the Journal of Child and Family Studies found that children whose parents engaged with new technologies together with them, even imperfectly, even without full understanding, showed significantly higher levels of digital confidence and parent child closeness around technology topics, more so than children whose parents either avoided tech or used it in isolation. You don't have to know more than your kid. You just have to be in it with them. That's it. That's the entire bar. Not expertise, just presence. The belief that you need to be an expert before you can lead is one of the most common and most costly cognitive distortions I see in parents. It's called conditional permission. I'll do this when I know enough, or I'll do this when my child's older. And guess what? That when turns into never. Leadership in parenting has never required perfection. It has always required showing up and figuring it out. AI literacy is no different. Let me tell you what AI literacy in a family actually looks like. It looks like asking your 9-year-old, hey, do you think the AI got that answer right? What do you notice about it? How did it respond? It looks like having a 5-minute conversation about why ChatGPT sometimes makes things up, which, by the way, is a perfect entry point into a conversation about critical thinking in general. It looks like watching a short video together and then pausing to discuss what was that trying to get us to believe? What did we agree with and what felt just not right, a little off? None of that requires a subscription. None of it requires expertise. It requires a parent who has decided that this matters and has given themselves permission to figure it out in real time. The parents who do this well aren't the most tech-savvy parents. They're the most curious ones, though. They're the ones who've decided that I don't know is the beginning of a conversation, not the end of one. And that decision, that shift in belief is everything. By the way, have you noticed that all of these things require what? Conversation. Today's generation, the youngest kids of today, are having less conversations with their parents than any previous generation. Besides that, their conversational skills are lacking, like big time. I'm sorry, I don't have the numbers for you. But this is important because that is coming from less and less conversations at home. They're still doing the same thing with their friends, right? They need to have more real conversations with their parents. I promised you evidence. Here it is, plainly stated. The World Economic Forum's Future of Jobs report from 2025 projects that 170 million new roles will be created by 2030, with 92 million displaced, a net gain of 78 million jobs. The fastest growing skill categories: AI, big data, technological literacy, critical thinking, and resilience. Then there's McKinsey Global Institute. They estimate that by 2030, up to 375 million workers globally will need to change occupational categories due to automation. The skills needed most: critical thinking, creativity, adaptability. Common Sense Media. Okay, now we're talking about children and AI exposure. Common Sense Media study from 2024 found that 53% of teens use generative AI weekly. Only 30% of their parents reported discussing AI use with their children on a regular basis. That needs to change. A Stanford study on AI in K through 12 found that students who received even basic AI literacy education showed measurably better ability to evaluate source credibility and detect misinformation. How about on the neuroscience itself of early learning? The brain's prefrontal cortex, responsible for decision-making, critical thinking, and impulse regulation, is under active development from ages 6 to 25. The habits of thought developed during this window have outsized influence on adult cognition. And research from the Harvard Center on the Developing Child confirms that executive function skills, including the ability to evaluate information and manage attention in a distracted world, are best developed through active engagement, not passive restriction. In other words, limiting isn't the answer. Equipping is the answer. And equipping starts with a parent who believes it's worth doing. Because once you believe that it's worth doing, once you believe that it deserves high priority, that's when you start to actually implement the steps it takes to do this with your child. Now, I want to leave you with this. The parents I work with who make the most progress, the ones whose kids show up differently, whose family dynamics around technology actually change, they're not the parents who knew the most at the start. They're the parents who decided that their discomfort wasn't bigger than their kids' future. They decided that waiting for certainty was a luxury they couldn't afford. They decided that being a guide matters more than being an expert. If anything I've said today landed for you, even just a little, if you felt even a flicker of, yeah, I've been putting this off too long, I want you to do one thing, just one. Come join us in Raising Digital Natives. It's a free community of parents who are having exactly these conversations in real time without judgment, but with support. There's no pressure, no overwhelm. It's a new group, so you won't feel out of place. Just parents who've decided to figure this out together. You can find it at daclife.com or just go on to Facebook and search Raising Digital Natives. I will put the link in the comments. Come in, look around, ask a question. That's it, one step. And if you're ready to go deeper, if you want an actual roadmap for bridging AI literacy into your home in a way that's practical, science-backed, and doesn't require you to become a programmer, AI Without the Panic is exactly that. It's a 10-day sprint. Don't worry. It only requires 10 minutes of your time to read an email for parents who are done waiting and ready to lead. But please start somewhere and start today because your kids are already living in this world. The only question is whether you're going to walk into it with them or keep watching from the doorway. And I believe you're a walk into it parent. That's why you're here. Thank you guys so much for spending this time with me, and I'll see you on the inside. Till next week, guys.